This is extremely informal, so it's really a situation. If you guys have questions at any point, you can just raise your hand or, kind of just yell out any way you'd like to get my attention kind of thing. I am going to share a screen here in a second, just kind of go over and communicate a little bit about what we've kind of come up with through our strategic planning process that we embarked on this year. So I guess unless anybody has any questions, we'll go ahead and jump in and get started. All right, so can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
All right, great. Well, again, thanks so much for joining. We have spent the better part of 2023 really engaged in a strategic planning process with many stakeholders, both internal and external. And it's been a really great process that we've been engaged with for the past, better part of 9 months. So I wanted to share a little bit about that today, answer any questions that you guys might have for me, and touch base on that. So let's jump in. All right. So our first area we spent some time in is under programs and supports. So this really has to do with a lot of our kind of services that we're involved with providing to individuals, families, really kind of hearing feedback from them on kind of the things that they shared with us in terms of things that were of importance to them. And so under Objective 1, this is certainly not one that's new to us or very surprising. We hear it quite a bit here in Clermont County, and that has to do with transportation. So, we have a small transit entity that we work with, Clermont CTC, which is our Clermont Transit Authority. And so we've worked, that's our main sort of public entity, but we work with a number of providers, a number of different transportation entities that provide transportation services for the people that we serve throughout the county. And that can vary. So that's, dependent on what the person's needs are. So it might be to get to and from an employment opportunity, to and from a day service, or just to be able to access their community in general. But we also know that can be a big challenge based on, a lot of times it can be based on the time of day that we're talking about. So sometimes things are maybe a little bit easier to access when it's more during your more common business hours, Monday through Friday. But when you get into more situations in which someone needs transportation in the evenings or on the weekends, that gets a little more difficult obviously for some of the people that we serve. And then the other piece that comes into is reality is based on the person's needs. So if a person needs maybe something more accessible in terms of wheelchair accessibility, things of that sort, that can be a little more challenging. And then obviously door-to-door transportation. And we don't have a huge, like in other counties where there are more metro services, things that are opportunities for folks, to be able to access a bus or things of that sort. It gets a little more challenging. So we were not surprised. I think I should share. So we embarked on this process with an organization called the Impact Group. So they do a lot of strategic planning with different entities like ours. So DD boards, school districts, things of that sort. So they were the ones that helped us through this process this year. And so when they spent a lot of time meeting with different stakeholders through focus groups and getting written surveys, just having conversations. So they reached out directly to people that couldn't participate in either of those kind of processes to be able to hear directly from folks. And this was definitely one that we heard. So So what we'll be doing, obviously, with all of these things, this is a 3-year strategic plan. So this is certainly a more, this is going to take us, it's not something we're obviously going to be able to, we have to take small bites of these elephants, at a time kind of thing. But it is a situation that we recognize that taking stock of where we are in some of these areas is going to be very, very important. So, what kinds of things are working? What kinds of things can we do better? Where can we take some time to be able to look into kind of, again, taking stock and seeing what next steps are in relation to some of these areas. And certainly that's one of the things we'll be doing in this arena. We do have some opportunity. We have different funds that people can access here through DD to be able to, especially when the employment arena. So folks are able to access some of our local funds to be able to, if transportation is a huge burden for them to get a job, we can work with them for a period of time to be able to help them maybe, get that paid for, to be able to provide ways to be able to do that. With the ultimate goal of hopefully finding other opportunities or means by which to get back and forth to work. But we also recognize, and there are some exciting things that we've sort of seen take place through, if you have a waiver, things of that sort over the past year or so. But we do know that we'll have to continue to work on this and to be able to have more entities that hopefully can maybe look into coming here to Clermont County to provide this service, to work with our local transit authorities, so our CTC folks, to see if we can do some more things on that front to open up more avenues for folks to be able to access that service. So that's something we'll have to have conversations around and sort of build a plan around as we move forward. Our second objective is for housing. So this is another big one. This is another one that we, have worked on, or we have seen certainly as a big, need for people that we serve in our community, especially when it comes to affordability. So obviously that's certainly not, that's sort of a universal thing across not only Clermont County, but the state of Ohio, and just kind of as a country as a whole kind of thing. Is just affordable housing opportunities for people who need that. So that is an area that we'll continue to work on as well. We've got a number of providers that we work with who, through different means, we were able to, make sure we have housing opportunities. But we also know that for those who need it, for those who especially need affordable housing, working with our metropolitan entity here in Clermont County to see if we can get and work with different means by which to get vouchers for individuals that we serve that can help them find those affordable opportunities. And then ways that we can continue to partner with, we have a housing network that we work with and have worked with over the years to actually purchase properties and do different things, especially when it comes to things like accessibility. Having the opportunity for people to have those opportunities as well. So certainly that's an area that we'll continue to work on over the next 3 years to hopefully make some inroads to help people find more places and more affordable places. And so stay tuned on that front as we continue to work through that objective. Number 3, actively exploring and identifying meaningful employment opportunities for individuals. This is one. So we have a team here at Clermont DD that this is their sole focus. So they work on helping individuals who are interested in finding employment to do that. So we also partner with different entities like Goodwill and different folks across the region to be able to provide these opportunities as well. Certainly, I think this is an area that, especially we see a lot of concerns around workforce. Companies are, I think, being, considering this more and more, and we're excited about that. We've had a lot of great partnerships with different employers across Clermont County for many, many years that provide opportunities for the individuals that we serve to work and have those meaningful employment chances. So But this is certainly something that we recognize that you don't ever want to lose sight of. It's definitely something that is not something we just want to take for granted. We want to keep doing this, and this is especially true for. And I look to like folks who are on the call who work with transition age students, where we can, hopefully instill some of that and provide opportunities for students at a very early age for not only them but their families to be able to experience that and really, kind of see what, the fact that, this is really what we should be striving for first, as Ohio being an employment first state. So certainly that's an area that we'll continue to work on as well, and focus our efforts hopefully with districts and different entities across the county to be able to find more and more of these opportunities and start them at the earliest ages that we can. So that's certainly what Objective 3 is emphasizing. I'll kind of go through all of these, and then we can take some questions if you have any at the end of this first page here. Objective 4, conduct a thorough investigation of various methods and resources available to effectively support families of individuals with developmental disabilities, particularly in providing respite support services. So this is something we hear quite often, especially for those families where the individual served as either still residing with the family, or the family may be very involved in their care, or very, very involved in making sure they're getting the things that they need. Respite is something we hear quite a bit in terms of just, having more opportunity for them, be it throughout the year, be it at certain times of the year, especially when maybe if it's for youth, when school's out, what summer looks like. And you can talk about it being either respite, or you can talk about it also being a situation in which just from time to time, based on the particular needs of the individual and the family, just that sort of intermittent care or intermittent needs. So certainly those are things that we can work again with folks who have waiver services. We can work with providers on that. But for those who do not, seeing in different ways how we can maybe partner or find ways to meet those needs. And especially this is particularly acute for, and it'll kind of go to this next Objective 5, they sort of blend together, where we have situations with very intense needs for youth. So for children who have intensive needs, how can we support those families to be able to get some breaks built into their schedules so that they can provide the care at the best way they can, and to be able to hopefully not, hopefully move to a situation in which they need to seek more drastic, long-term care or out-of-home care, because we know those are, one, hard to find, two, they can be very expensive, and three, a lot of times when those kinds of things happen, the outcomes aren't as, we're not seeing outcomes that we would like to see for those particular youth and their families, maybe to the degree, especially when they're in situations where they're in more long-term, either residential care, things of that sort. So this will be probably, I think it's safe to say, over the next 3 years, and if not more, over the next year, an area that we're going to be putting a lot of efforts into. We've already done a lot of that here with different partnerships that we have with our Council of Government, for example, our different regional partners across the Southwest Ohio area, to try to come up with different solutions. We've got some really exciting things happening with some grants that we've been able to garner here to be able to provide either out-of-home respite or, again, some in-home respite opportunities so the family maybe can get a break or get some of the needed supports that they need just to kind of maintain that household and to be able to do things there for a lot of the situations that we're finding for youth. Certainly this is, and I know for those who are on this call, this is their day-to-day. This is what they're doing on a regular basis. This is kind of the calls they get pretty frequently. And so it's certainly an area that we know. And I think it's only certainly been exacerbated by the pandemic, but it was, certainly needs and things we were seeing even prior to that. And so, there's a lot that goes into this. A lot of these kinds of things can be costly in nature based on kind of the services needed. And so certainly it's something we have to not only look at the short term, but what does what does it look like from a sustainability standpoint as we look to kind of build these programs and be able to figure out kind of, what's going to hopefully get the best outcomes in these particular situations. So the 4 and 5, I think, will be two areas that we'll continue to see be probably the most acute that we're going to be working on, along with some of the other areas that we'll go into a little bit later related to some services and different things that we're doing. And then lastly, I think, which also ties into that a little bit, is to explore and implement ways to support service providers to maintain their staffing levels, continue providing quality services to individuals with developmental disabilities. I don't need to, this is kind of preaching to the choir for those who are on the call. This is kind of the number one concern that's been out there really ever since I think we first started seeing concerns back in 2018, but again, it was sped up by the pandemic. So certainly, and we're only going to, I think, continue to see this need kind of be something where are there, making sure we have, providers that have the staff that can provide the care that ultimately will be the things that needed for the people that we're serving. So, so this is a huge aspect of this kind of interwoven partnership that we have with providers, recognizing that on the county board side, a lot of what we're doing is working with families about understanding what their needs are, understanding kind of what kinds of things they either need now or in the future, and then trying to then, obviously work very closely with the service providers in our community to be able to meet those needs. And that definitely comes into play again when I go back to situations where we're serving folks with either children or adults with intensive needs. A lot of times, either we might be serving folks who maybe, we have served folks who have come out of developmental centers as adults with very intensive needs. That's almost a different skill set needed for some providers to be able to jump into those situations. So how are we partnering with those providers to be able to do that? What does the staffing look like? What does the staff training look like? All those kinds of things that we partner with our providers on. And we're excited to have Colleen Foxton, who's our provider liaison, in place to be able to also support providers who are maybe needing a boost or some help, especially when we talk about independent providers. How do I get signed up? What does that look like? What kind of training do I need? Any way that we can be able to build that, and be able to explore that, I think is really helpful so that we can continue to hopefully build that pool of providers that will be needed not only now, but into the future, especially as we talk about some of these intensive needs. So those are the first kind of 6 objectives that we're going to be focused on. Again, probably none of them terribly surprising if you've been working in the field for a little bit, but I think it was reinforcing for us to know that these were things that when we were asking and getting feedback, these were some of the initial things that kind of came back to us. So I'm going to take a quick pause and just see if anybody has any questions or if there's any other comments associated with any of these things that I can expound upon before we move on to the next section. Great. Well, we will move on to the next section. So thank you, guys. We'll some of these will kind of move through relatively quickly. One of the things in goal 1 really was kind of focused on a lot of the the people that we're serving. And these others will as well kind of touch on those as well. Some of these are also internal in nature. So we did talk with a number of staff here at Clermont DD about some of the areas that that would help in terms of things to focus on over the next 3 years. So you'll see kind of a blend of things as we move through these next topics, where some of it's internal, some of it's a little more external, and one of them is communication. So these are, again, situations where obviously we're doing a lot of different things from an external communication aspect. So when you talk about things like external communication, what does that look like? What kinds of tools are you using? So it mentions things like social media, your traditional methods of, your newsletter types of opportunities, things you're putting on your website, all the different ways by which you can hopefully get information out, and that it's being disseminated the best way possible. So, and that's always a challenge because it moves, it ebbs, it flows. Sometimes it's convenient. What may be convenient, for one person might be less convenient for another based on the technology they use or the technology they don't use. So this is just, I think, a reminder for us. These were areas where it just was, a reminder to us to just keep focused in on how can we better, as best we can, work on this and take stock of how are we doing in these areas. So when I look to Lisa here, this is an area she and I will be working on very closely to, kind of, again, evaluate kind of where are we, what tools are we using, get feedback on, is it working for folks? Are there better, are there more diverse ways we can do it? Do we need to expand our diversity in terms of getting communication and information out? So again, that'll be something we'll just kind of stay tuned on as we go. So that was objective 1. Objective 2 really is, again, an emphasis on just our partnerships and our collaborations throughout the community. We work with a lot of different, just like every entity, every organization, everybody has a lot of different partners and relationships that they have throughout their communities based on the different connections that we work with, either because of a direct connection. So, some of our other social service entities, other social service organizations like mental health, children's services, senior services, all the different kind of, entities like that across the county. We have our partnerships that we work with, but then there's a lot of different private entities that we also collaborate with, and a lot of different, obviously you can't lose sight of things like our chamber, our local chamber, our political support, so our commissioners, all the different things throughout the community that we're working with. And and I do think this is an area that we do need to, obviously we're always looking at and working ways that we can collaborate to share, or to either share ideas, share services, look at shared funding in some circumstances based on the circumstances, based on we talk about multi-system youth. A lot of times those youth are supported by other entities like mental health, children's services, things of that sort as well. So I think we just, this is an area that we just need to keep as a focus area for us. Just this past week, I got sent some ideas about some different things that are happening where across the region, some talk about childcare and childcare for children with intensive medical needs, and how maybe we can do some collaborative things to be able to support that population, maybe even work to try to lobby and do different things to be able to get some funding for that population. So I think this is, again, just a reminder for us that we need to keep those collaborations alive, and to be able to find ways, because, we all know we can't do it alone, especially in certain situations where we have a lot of diverse needs, either for the person served, or the various things that are occurring in that person's life and that family's life. So I think that's just a reminder. Objective 2 is a reminder for us not to lose sight of that. So 3 and 4 are really external in nature. So again, just kind of keeping a sense or looking at kind of how things are going. We did just implement, we have a new website in place. I think just evaluating how's that going, how are are folks using that? Is it working for them? So finding tools to be able to glean that information and get that feedback to us. And then also, ways that we can help not only individuals and families understand the different things that are happening across the county, but ways that we can also share information about. I mean, it just gets so complicated. It gets complicated for us internally. I can't imagine what it might be for folks who are receiving the services and all the different things that are happening in a given circumstance, where it just gets extremely complicated as to where do I go, where can I go for this, how can I utilize this, how better can I access this. So ways that we can hopefully try to find ways to make that more simple for the people that we're serving and their families, because we do recognize, and again, for folks on this call there who are doing this on a daily basis, they're the ones that are, experiencing this, where it's like, it can be overwhelming for a family or an individual to be like, okay, you gave me a list of all these things. Now, where do I go? What does it mean? And so in any circumstance like that, we want to try to hopefully work towards ways we can simplify that or find some ways to communicate those things or make them a little bit more clear and accessible for the people served. And then we talk about things like events, ways that we can make sure folks are aware of the different things that we are either doing internally or things that are happening across the community that people could access as well. So that's objective 4. Objective 5 is really internal in its nature. So what we're constantly working on are just ways that we can support our staff. So making sure they're getting the most up-to-date information related to things happening here in the organization, and what's the most amenable way to get that information to them. So be that, through things like we're doing today, things like where, we have opportunities to share information through email or we've just gone through a whole process of getting our internal information put into a SharePoint arena kind of thing. So ways that we can continue to work on this, get memos out, find ways that folks are getting the information in the most accessible way possible. So recognizing that, and we have different departments. So trying to get a sense for, what's happening over here in early intervention, what's happening in different areas, school age, ways that we can do that. So hopefully it's digestible for folks and be able to, and in a way that is what they need. So those are things that we're going to have to continue to kind of work with, and also work with staff to get a sense of, yeah, that's working, or no, this could be better, to try to find those opportunities to glean that as we work through that. A couple more here in the communication. So again, this objective 6 is very similar to that objective 5, which is again, just, we have a lot of diverse things that happen here at Clermont DD. So ways that, and sometimes it's hard to, it'd be nice to kind of know or have a better sense of kind of what it is that not only is happening in that arena, but what are some of the things that those staff are responsible for? What do they do? How do they interconnect with some of the things that I do? And so that's really what Objective 6 is focused on, is trying to kind of work towards enhancing that or finding ways to be able to share that information a little bit better. And then Objective 7 is just, how are we communicating out to our community the positive things that are not only happening through the direct things that we do here at Clermont DD, but also the things that are happening widespread through our community. I think the best example of this is our Good Fortune event. It's so amazing for me to sit through that evening. We have in every October, we have an opportunity to just have an event where we invite providers, individuals, families, our staff, different political, our political leaders, our different stakeholders. And in those situations, we're oftentimes like recognizing some of the amazing things that are happening through our community. And it's eye-opening in terms of, and that's just a small microcosm of the other hundreds and hundreds of things that are happening throughout our community on a yearly and annual basis. And so, so how do we, again, we've got a lot of different ways that we do that, and we do that quite frequently through things like our shared, social media sites and that kind of thing. But how can we do that even more so that folks who maybe don't have as a direct correlation or direct contact with what we do on a regular basis get a sense. And this is obviously extremely important just through the cycle that we went through with our renewal levy. So, in situations, where we, for example, we're on the ballot or things of that sort, that is a great opportunity for us to be able to share with our different civic organizations and different things that are happening across our community, the really amazing things that occur in the DD community throughout the year and the years. But you just don't want it to be during that time. You want it to obviously be concentrated or be able to, diversify, to be able to do that on a regular basis where folks are getting that and see the great stories that are occurring. And there's some really cool things that obviously occur on a daily basis where folks are doing some amazing things. So that's just a reminder to us again as to how do we get those testimonials? How do we get those outreach efforts? What kinds of ways can we get those out? It might even be sharing it with, obviously, ways that we can use either our local media or our regional media to help us with those kinds of things. So, which we do quite frequently. We get those into things like the Clermont Sun and the Enquirer and things like that. But just again, a reminder for us to keep that as a focus area. So I'm going to pause there and see if there are any questions or comments before we move on to the next section.
I just want to make a comment. True Care is in a lot of counties, and I do just want to give you guys a lot of credit for that event and the dinner, the banquet. We've now come twice, and since we've only been in Clermont County for a year and a half now, and there's not many counties that do that. I don't really know of any others, but I think they do something smaller, maybe something similar, but not quite to that extent. And we love it. We feel very valued as an agency, and just being a part of it, it definitely does make us feel part of a bigger purpose, and to see what other people are doing. And I live in Clermont County, so but it's not just that. And I tell people that, I say, it's not just that, because our CEO and president, they live in Warren County and they come here. And then we have managers that live in Hamilton County and we're in those counties, and they come. And to see that, we love that. And we were part of the tech event, and we're getting to tell other counties about that tech event, which brought people to that event, and spreading the flyers and spreading the word about it. So I'm very proud to not only live in that county, but to provide services in that county, and just to see the great things you guys are doing. But it has come so far in a year, the things you guys are doing. I just want to say it's just getting better and better. And I think that the services are just getting better and better. So I'm very proud. I just have to say that.
I appreciate you sharing that, Ashley. Yeah, and I feel badly for not mentioning our tech event back in July. That was such a well-attended event as well. So shame on me for not doing that, because that was an amazing evening as well. I think it's those kinds of things that do sort of recharge. It's sort of like, oh my gosh, for me, again, I hear obviously a lot of different things that are happening, but to see it all kind of in one place, or to be able to see those events where they're all in one place, see all the people that came out, it's really, really exciting to see. And so certainly, how do we sort of keep, like to your point, Ashley, how do we sort of keep that momentum? How do we build on that? Find ways that we can, because one of the very fortunate things, which we'll talk about later in this, which I'll, be cognizant of time because we're moving, but in terms of we have a very nice facility here for things where we can kind of spread out and do some things where we're pretty fortunate there here in Clermont County to have our Wildy Center here, where we've got a lot of space to be able to do some pretty neat things. So, so certainly something to keep in mind. So thank you so much for sharing it, Ashley. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, well, to keep things moving along, these are probably, again, more a little internal in their design, but they do have a certainly an impact in terms of the services we're providing to the people and the families and our partnerships with providers. So a lot of things we heard from our staff. So this was kind of a staff engagement type of situation here, where folks were, and our staff were sharing some of the things they'd like to see. Little more in terms of training and professional development. So we obviously do a lot of our required different things related to our training, all the different things associated with that. But as we see, we're certainly seeing more and more situations where the staff that are providing the different services or the case management type services are seeing very complex situations that are a little more diversified than probably maybe they've, as we've gone over, things like mental health needs, even things like getting into things like addiction and different areas where they're just maybe different than what they've ever experienced. And so how can we be able, the request here is to sort of how can we build our toolbox, or the things that we can do to provide training or opportunities for folks to be able to go get that training, so they feel more and more comfortable being able to address those support needs more, better and in a better way. So certainly that's something to keep in mind. Certainly the other thing we're seeing quite a bit of is just, for children, again, all the different things that kind of come into play with new programs, relatively new programs, like things like Ohio Rise and different things that we're seeing out there for youth. So the more we can build our strengths in those areas for our staff, the better equipped they are to be able to have those conversations, to be able to equip the individuals and families with some of the things that they need, and to be able to navigate. Again, a lot of this has to do with navigating different systems. It just gets very complicated in situations where folks are trying, individuals and families are trying to kind of figure out, what's the best path. If we can be more attuned to that and be able to, our staff are better able to assist them navigate those, the better they'll be equipped. So I think that's certainly something that came through in Objective 1 for sure. Let's see. Again, Objective 2 goes back to a little bit more to communication, just process where just, again, communication with our employees about, again, some of their varying needs, some of the things that we can support them in, hopefully with obviously increased employee engagement, collaboration, and again, effectiveness, things of that sort. So that's some of the things we've already touched on, but probably just building on how can we develop in that. And there were some shared ideas. We had a meeting with our management staff last week and talking a little bit about some ways we can maybe start doing that even more than what we've done before. So ideas will start flowing from that, and hopefully that will improve effectiveness then for the people and the families that we're serving. Retention, and this was really an area that we heard quite a bit. So we have, just like many entities, we have had a little bit of struggle with recruiting and retention, especially in our SSA population. So certainly that's an area of focus that we're going to have to continue to strive and work on towards improvement, and work on ways that we can get that worked on over the next. Certainly, I think that's going to be more acute than just over the 3-year, but certainly it is sort of a long-term strategic discussion, because, one of the things we've talked about internally is we do know we're sort of in a time of change in relation to, folks are more mobile in terms of their employment than maybe what we've ever experienced, certainly also, especially in the county board system, for those of us who've been working in the county board system for a number of years. So we know we're going to have to, it's not just, are the traditional things we've either done, or, we've got to really kind of, I guess, reinvent ourselves when it comes to these kinds of things, and look at ways that we can continue to strive to do that. So I think all these areas kind of are focused in on improving in some of those areas. And it's not just focused on SSAs. I mean, we could talk about our entire department or all of our departments when it comes to this, but certainly that's been the most acute area. It's certainly the one that we got feedback on this year, just based on some of the things we've seen in this last year related to recruiting and retention. So that's an area of focus that will be concentrated on over certainly the next year for sure. We talked about succession planning a little bit, or we got that feedback in terms of succession planning. So recognizing that for some of our staff who will be either getting close to that time when they're looking to retire, do we have a pool of folks that are ready to, to hopefully move into those positions, to be able to have the skill sets to be able to do those kinds of things. And so that's an area that we'll be working with our human resources staff to kind of focus on that as well. And then we've engaged on a new employee evaluation process over the last year. We're going to continue to evaluate that, and and that was feedback that we got as well. Just looking to find ways to make sure we're getting meaningful and constructive feedback back to our employees, and vice versa. So our employees being able to give that meaningful and constructive feedback back to management staff, so that we can kind of continue to work on that staff development side. So this is probably an internal one as much as anything, but I do think it helps to be able to go, obviously this has an impact on the people we're serving, because if we don't have, if we're not having those things in place, it has a ripple effect down through the system provision as well. So I think those were all the sections or objectives in that area. Anything folks have questions about, or any other thoughts before I move to the next one? All right, goal 4 is about technology. This one has it was a little more internal focus, but as I look at like Ashley and I, we talk a lot about, when she mentioned our event back in July, technology is just, how are we continuing to support these, not only our staff internally with the things that they need to be able to do the things and use the tools that are available in this day and age to create efficiencies, to make sure people are, especially when we have a lot more staff working remotely, that's a huge factor in things like making sure all their stuff works, making sure everything is, doing it to the best of their ability, so they're as efficient as they can for the people and the families that they're serving. And then we also, in objective 2, one of the areas that is always a huge thing of concern is just around cybersecurity. So making sure we get the things in place to make sure we have, no concerns as it relates to any kind of situation where individuals' information would be compromised or things of that sort. But I think one of the areas I think, and I'm going to, talk a little bit more with the impact group on ways that we can make sure we're not losing concentration or focus on how do we support the individuals with their tech needs, or ways, and be that through obviously remote supports or different things that we can be able to continue to meet those, continue to expand those opportunities for the people we serve, especially with workforce shortages and the different things that come along with that, making sure that folks have opportunities to try those things out, to be able to explore that, to be able to see how that can only enhance or be able to alleviate, even maybe, for independence sake. Sometimes if you can do it through a quick, technological means, you don't necessarily need someone stopping out at your place all the time or things of that sort, if that's not something that you're interested in. So I'm excited to see how that will continue to grow. There's just, I think the sky's the limit with all these things, as we move forward. So So that's really why goal 4 exists, is to make sure we don't lose sight of any of that. So anything else on that one before we move along? Okay. This one is really an internal one. So this just focuses on our buildings, facilities, our infrastructure, making sure we have, keep our safety, all the things related to physical security measures in place here at our Wildly location. So we do operate a small school age program. And obviously, unfortunately, in the news, all too frequently we hear about situations where there are, our safety compromises, especially in school settings. So this is just a reminder for us to make sure we're doing everything, keeping everything up to snuff and up to speed, not only just obviously for our school program, but our entire facility. For those who are here at our location, making sure that we're keeping not only a good safe environment, but also an environment that is inviting to not only our employees, but also the people that we serve, their families. Excuse me. To again, have a safe place for folks to be able to do different things, and we've got a lot of different things that happen out of this location based on the things that we provide for the people that we serve. So this is just a reminder, goal 5, that we're keeping up with those maintenance schedules, safety measures, and keeping those things taken care of. So any questions about any of that? All right, I think finally, goal 6, which really kind of comes out of a season that we just came out of, which is we just went through a levy cycle. So for those who are unfamiliar, we have local levy funds that we have through property taxes here in Clermont County. I'd say a good 2/3 of the resources that we have come through those means. So we have 3 continuous levies and 1 5-year operating levy that has to be renewed at least once every 5 years. So this is just a reminder for us to be obviously good stewards of that, and to be able to share and communicate how is all the things associated with the things that we're doing, the things that we're seeing coming. How does that line up with our financial needs and our fiscal accountability? And again, it's kind of one of those things: where do you put your eggs? Where do you put your resources? Where do you put your investments? To make sure that it's a situation that we're meeting, obviously, as many needs as possible. And I can tell you, those needs are growing. I mean, we've already talked about at the beginning of this program, some of the intense needs we're seeing coming at us with different situations that we see with youth and children, many adults with very intensive needs. So our numbers grow. Our early intervention numbers have grown. I think this is only something that we're going to have to continue, especially over the next 3 years for sure. Be prepared for the fact that even with the renewal, which is wonderful news, it's a situation, kind of what does this look like as we go through the next 3 to 5 years, in terms of what are the needs of our community? Are there things that we're going to need to communicate in terms of things that we may need to do from a financial standpoint to make sure we're having the most impact for the most people served? And obviously that can be a big challenge, because it can be kind of certainly all over the place in terms of, we've talked about things like respite, we've talked about things mentioning early intervention, mentioning things like mental health support needs. It runs the whole gamut of all the different things that we're seeing certainly coming at us with the needs of the people that we serve, and we recognize that, and we understand the responsibility of that. So, and I think we're a growing county, so we've certainly seen over the last couple years more and more individuals moving here to Clermont County, which has been a good thing, but certainly that means that's going to increase the number of services and needs that we'll see over the next 3, 5, 10 years as we move forward. So So communicating that, doing that in a way that we share that with the folks that have the most impact with that. So that can be our political community in terms of our commissioners, and also sharing that with our different other social service organizations that are experiencing the same thing, so that they, they're seeing growth in all the areas that they're working in as well. So how do we work together on that to make sure we've got the resources in place to meet the needs? So that's really, I think, what 6 is all about, is just kind of working through that. So I think that's the last area of our proposed strategic plan for the next 3 years. I did want to take just some time to do that. I failed to mention at the beginning, our board does not meet in November, so that's why I usually try to use the month of November to be able to do this. It allows an opportunity to kind of take stock of where we've been over the last 9 months or so, 11, 10 months kind of thing, where we're in terms of kind of what we've been doing over the last portion of the year, but then what are we doing as we're moving forward into not only 24, but those couple years ahead of that, or beyond that as well. So just a couple minutes left. I want to be respectful of folks' time, but I want to take some time to see if anyone has any questions or any other comments that I can expound upon on. I'll take it off of share just so I can see you guys again. All right. Well, I do want to say thanks. Not only, I definitely want to thank our providers that were on today. You guys mean a tremendous amount to us here in Clermont County. You guys do. So I started my career at Goodwill, so I have very fond feelings for the folks out there at Goodwill, and the tremendous work that you guys do on a daily basis. And Ashley, can't say enough about what you guys are doing in terms of the services and different things you're doing here in Clermont County for folks served. So thanks so much for being with us. Thanks for the staff that joined this afternoon. And again, if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can email me or give me a call, and I'll be happy to follow up on anything you guys might have. So anything before we wrap things up?
Thank you. Thanks for all you guys do.